Hello, everyone, welcome back to the World Conflict Monitor. Please subscribe and like my videos. Today we will dive deep into a startling development that some analysts once thought unthinkable, the possibility of the Belarusian army defecting and what that means for Lukashenko's grip on power. The title we're focusing on is Unthinkable in Minsk. Belarus army defects, Lukashenko's power crumbling. We'll explore the external pressures, internal dynamics, performance under stress, safety, or the lack thereof, the unique aspects of this scenario, possible price, in terms of cost and consequences, and then conclude with what might come next. From the outside, the situation looks almost like a geopolitical thriller. Belarus, a long-time authoritarian state under Alexander Lukashenko, has over the decades leaned heavily on security forces, police, KGB, military, to maintain control. But cracks have been growing for a while. Protests in 2020 shook the regime. Defections and resignations in the security services have been visible on social media, and a partisan sabotage movement, especially via BYPOL, an association of former security officers opposing the regime, has conducted operations including drone strikes on a Belarusian airbase near Minsk. Belarus has also become deeply embedded in Russia's strategic posture. The joint Zapad 2025 exercises are one example. In September 2025, Belarus and Russia held war games, including rehearsals for launching tactical nuclear weapons on Belarusian soil. These maneuvers serve both to project force outward and to secure internal levers of control. Lukashenko publicly claimed that rehearsing nuclear strikes is part of readiness, saying, "We must be able to do all this." On the internal front, the pressure has been steadily mounting. The Belarusian regime uses a combination of coercion arrests, political repression, propaganda, and loyalty networks. But as economic strain, sanctions, and the spillover of the Ukraine war put more burdens on the population, discontent is creeping into state institutions. Analysts note that Lukashenko's political space is shrinking. His dependence on Russia has increased, while his ability to make independent moves has diminished. The performance of this regime under stress is a test. How resilient is it when its pillar, the military and security services, starts to waver? To date, full-scale military defection remains hypothetical. But there have been partial signs: resignations of officers, videos of discarded uniforms, police officers handing flowers to protesters, or resigning publicly via social media. The regime's countermeasures include tighter control over communications, purging suspected dissenters, and more aggressive repression of protests. The performance under stress also includes military readiness. Belarus has invested in modern arms, has hosted Russian troops, and allowed deployment of missile systems. But training and loyalty matter more than hardware when the chain of command is fraying. Lukashenko often emphasizes that battle outcomes depend on professionalism, cohesion, moral and volitional qualities of soldiers, a clear admission of the regime's awareness that loyalty is not guaranteed. Now, let's linger a bit on the interior dynamics, the deep internal domain, morale, command integrity, communication, loyalties, motivations, and friction among elites. Inside the regime, there is tension among the highest echelons. Some military or security officials may privately question whether continuing to back Lukashenko is in their long-term interest, especially if they see the regime losing legitimacy or becoming a liability. The presence of shadow networks like BYPOL, which explicitly do not recognize Lukashenko's legitimacy, reveals an alternative center of loyalty inside the security forces. Communication channels may be fractured. In authoritarian systems, much depends on what orders filter through, who trusts whom, and who doubts. If commanders at a regional base decide to withhold enforcement, that breaks the chain of control. The insiders may fear personal reprisals, internal purges, or being labeled traitors at the moment of defection, so safe coordination, guarantees and signals from opposition or external actors are crucial. The regime's intelligence apparatus will be watching for any sign of disloyalty, making open defection risky. Motivation is another interior factor. For officers and soldiers, motivations range from ideological loyalty, career benefit, fear, ethnic or regional ties, or moral objections to repressing civilians. If many see that suppressing protests is eroding legitimacy or contravening their conscience, more may be willing to defect if they believe there's safety in numbers or guarantees. Then there is the elite competition layer. The regime is held together by balancing interests of different power groups: military, intelligence, security, party cadres, regional governors. As cracks open, factions may jockey for advantage. Some may hedge by covertly aligning with opposition or foreign actors. A moment of critical mass for defection likely requires coordination across multiple units and senior leadership. All that is playing out now in latent form behind closed doors. In terms of safety features, in a political, military scenario, safety means protection against retaliation, credibility of guarantees, escape mechanisms, and credible neutrality. The opposition or external backers, e.g., Western governments, neighboring states might offer asylum, safe corridors, or legal immunity for defectors, but whether those guarantees are credible is key. Lack of trust is a major barrier. For a defector, the risk of being assassinated, jailed, or crushed is grave, especially if the regime maintains control of strong security organs. Defection is not safe without credible guarantees. Another safety aspect is the timing. Defecting too early, before momentum or cover is sufficient, can lead to swift isolation and punishment, but waiting too long means losing the moment. So safety features in this context involve secret coordination, staging grounds, secure communications, assurances from multiple parties, and mass defections to dilute retribution. What makes this scenario uniquely dramatic, its U.S.P. unique selling points, is that it challenges deeply held assumptions about resilience of authoritarian states. The military is usually the final pillar. If that begins to erode, the entire power structure is at risk. The spectacle of an army turning away from its autocrat is rare and powerful. Another unique factor is Belarus's peculiar position as both an internal dictatorship and a strategic partner of Russia. Defection in Belarus is not just domestic, it has international implications. If parts of the Belarusian forces break toward the opposition, they could influence the balance in the Ukraine war, border security, or Russia's capacity. The scenario becomes more than a regime crisis, it becomes a regional flashpoint. Also, because Belarus is relatively small and centrally governed, coordinated defections, if they happen, can ripple fast. The symbolic impact is huge. Even rumors of defection can sow doubt and accelerate collapse. Now, price does not mean monetary cost so much as the consequences, trade-offs, and risks. For defectors, the price is personal safety, reputation, loss of position, possible retaliation, and exile. For the regime, the price is most of all legitimacy, control, security, and ultimately power. If the military fractures, chaos could ensue, rival militias, foreign intervention, civil war. The country risks destabilization and external meddling. Economically, defection or regime crisis would scare investors, exacerbate sanctions, shut off trade, cause capital flight, collapse public order. Regionally, it could draw in Russia, the West, or neighboring states seeking to shape outcomes. For Russia, a defecting Belarus is a strategic loss. For the West, an opportunity, which means the price includes foreign proxy influence. Politically, even if partial defection happens, the regime may respond with mass arrests, internal purges, curfews, martial law, or foreign military intervention, which brings more suffering to civilians. The price of transition is likely steep and chaotic. In conclusion, the phenomenon unthinkable in Minsk, Belarus army defects, is not yet fully realized, but all the ingredients seem to be simmering. The external pressures, internal cracks, and symbolic defection signals point toward a regime under siege. If the Belarusian military begins to shift loyalty, Lukashenko's power could indeed crumble. But it will not be instant or clean. It will be messy, dangerous, and contested. Whether such a moment arrives depends on the depth of discontent, the courage and coordination of defectors, the credibility of guarantees, and the ability of opposition and external actors to support a transition without letting chaos or foreign takeover prevail. That's the story I wanted to share today. Thank you for watching, and if you found this illuminating, don't forget to subscribe and like.